is Dodge the Dodo by E.S.T, Esbjörn Svensson Trio. Esbjörn Svensson was this Swedish piano player who tragically passed away in the scuba diving accident. I guess it's 10 years ago or something. And this is off of his album From Gagarin's Point of View. Not sure what's the correct pronunciation there. But this tune is called Dodge the Dodo. Not sure what he means by that either. But maybe you can let me know in the comments what that means. It's a really cool tune. That whole album is really awesome. I really strongly recommend it. So I'm going to show you this tune. It's really good for many reasons. It's good if you want to add a tune to your jazz repertoire, but maybe a little bit different. It comes from a different point of view. It's almost like a rock influence in that tune. And it's also, for that reason, very good for teaching because it's in A minor and E phrygian. So if you have students who come from perhaps a rock background, right, but they're new to jazz, this is a good introduction tune. Then we're going to talk about how to solo over phrygian. There's a phrygian vamp in this tune. There's also this recording with another Swedish jazz musician, Ulf. He has recorded this tune. So we're going to steal some of his ideas for chord voicings, but also arpeggios based on those chords that we can use in soloing over phrygian. So hopefully this will give you a new tune to add to your repertoire and your teaching repertoire, and some ideas on how to solo and in phrygian and how to play chords in phrygian. So if you think that sounds interesting, let's get started. So let's start with the A section, and the chords, they're A minor, F, G, D minor, A minor, F, D to E, I guess, power chords. So there is this E.S.T songbook you can find, and this is how the chords are written out in that book, but they're not really those chords because, as always, when you're dealing with third-less voicings, it's difficult to come up with a good name, right? So the first voicing he plays is this. So it's a fifth and another fifth on top of it. And then he moves that around. And then just fifths for those two. Which gives you this feeling of that you're in A minor, right? But you're not sure, is that a D major or an E major, or is it minor? We don't know, which is great because sometimes it's good to leave something open. It almost sounds like new metal, right? They'd like to play those chords. So if you really want somebody to play exactly like that, I guess the best thing would be to write out the notation rather than chord symbols. Because what do we call it? A sus2? Yeah, I guess it's A sus2. So even better is to do drop D. Then you can play like this and go down here. So this is not an exact transcription of what Esbjörn Svensson is playing. This is how I'm playing it. So that's kind of the loop of the A section. Let's loop it. And then let's play the melody on top of that. the D triad there, and then A minor triad with the ninth. So that's the A section. Again, this for teaching, this is perfect if somebody comes from like a rock background, like they like playing those. Could be like a new metal thing, or maybe almost like Nirvana-ish. So I'm not sure if E.S.T was inspired by that kind of music, but I would imagine it's not impossible that they were looking for something like that. I'm gonna go back to regular tuning. Then there's a B section, a kind of an interlude, which is like a half tempo. So to contrast the kind of rock-based, rock-driven beat of the A section that goes like this. It's slow, it's like a phrygian chord. And then F major 7. And then F minor 6, I think. The E.S.T songbook says F minor flat 6, but that would sound ridiculous. So I think it's F minor 6 or some F minor. It stays there for a while and then goes back to... That's pretty much it. And then at the end they come back and play the melody repeated, but they drop kind of the last bar. Okay, so then the solo section is in E phrygian. It's kind of an open solo. They're just soloing over this vamp. So it's a little bit different than how you would normally play jazz, right? They play kind of an ambient soloing. You can also hear a great version on YouTube with where Pat Metheny is playing with E.S.T and to see how they're soloing. So the bass player is playing with a bow and using effects to create more of an ambient feel rather than just running scales and arpeggios. So it's kind of hard to recreate that feeling on the guitar without using tons of effects. So what I like to do when I'm supposed to create kind of an ambient feel is that I like to use voicings as soloing. So we're gonna learn here a few voicings, phrygian voicings. So if I say, play me an E phrygian chord, people play this, which totally is an E phrygian chord. But it's kind of like what everybody does. So if I ask you, can you play another one? It's like, oh. And if that's the case, we'll need to learn more phrygian voicings. Ulf starts his solo, or the tune, the recording starts with this voicing, which is a really interesting voicing. We're gonna take a look at how he comes up, or how you can come up with this voicing, what it is. It's a little bit more interesting, I think, because this is what everybody plays. So we need to analyze this chord to see what it is. So it's an F major 7 in closed position, right? With flat 5 over E. This gives you an E sus flat 9. I think it's easier to think of it as an F major 7 flat 5 over E. That means that we can play the inversions of this chord. If we think of this as the chord and the bass note here. But it's really hard to play inversions of closed voicing, so we need to come up with a drop 2. So this is a drop 2 of F major flat 5 over E. The first inversion. It's a little bit hard to grab, so sometimes I just play the top 3 notes. If we play it down here instead, so this is a third inversion of F major 7 flat 5 over E. So this voicing creates this interval, right? The flat 9 from the E to the F. And if you study music theory, you're always told never to use that interval because I guess it's the most dissonant interval. But we have to realize when people say that, what they're talking about is arranging for, let's say, an orchestra, a horn section, and especially for a vocal ensemble like a choir, it's going to be really hard, even for a very good choir, for the bass to hit that note and keep it with good pitch. And horn players too, it's really difficult unless you're dealing with super professional players, and even then it can be very difficult. That's why we don't want to use that interval. But on guitar we can do this, totally do that, because we don't have that problem, right? Just remember or realize that this is a very gnarly sound. But if we're playing phrygian, it's already kind of a gnarly sound. That's kind of the sound we're going for. We have that interval here too. So I love this chord with its voicing. So all I did was the same thing, but on the top set of strings, and then the middle set of strings. We could also notice that this is a quartal sound. It's like a fourth voicing, which means I can go up the diatonic scale in fourths. This is another interesting chord or voicing. So what is that? It's kind of a C major with a G dropped to an F. Also gives you a great E phrygian sound. That means that I can play any C major chord and drop the G to an F. This is what I talked about in my video on the volume 2 of Mick Goodrick's Almanac of Voice Leading. He calls this a fourth structure. C major fourth structure, because I don't know what you would call that chord. C major with an F instead of G. So the inversions of that, let's do it here actually on this set of strings. I drop the G to an F. What's different from the previous chord is that I have a C in this voicing as well. Didn't have that here, but now I do. And then here, it's this chord, right? I just drop the G to the F. And if this C major 7, I'm kind of assuming that you know the inversions of drop 2 voicings here. I have videos on drop 2 voicings, or drop voicings. I drop the G to F. This is a great, I love it. So, and the last one would be the one. So if I can move this with itonically in the E phrygian, that means I can do the other ones as well. So this chord is a C major 7 in third inversion, drop to G to an F, and move it diatonically. So this is also quartal harmony, right? Because we derived this from a stack of fourths. Now, so check this out. See if you can follow me. So if I play drop 2, drop 4 of a C major 7, that's a drop 2, drop 4. First inversion. C, B, C, G, B, E. Drop the G to an F to create this fourth voicing. that's the chord we had, the Ulfakenius chord. So it's a drop 2, drop 4, C major with the G drop to an F in first inversion. See if you can wrap your head around that. So it's a fifth, and it's a fifth. From E to B is a fifth, and then F to C is a fifth. And since the fifth is an inversion of fourth, you could reverse it and play a fourth and a fifth, or a fourth and a fourth. So hopefully that gives you some more ideas for chord voicings over E phrygian. Now let's try and use them as arpeggios. So let's see if I can play some of Ulfakenius soloing without YouTube censoring me. He's playing this fast arpeggio. And I thought when I heard it that it was playing like an F major. F major 7 flat 5 arpeggio, because that's what it sounded like to me, but it's not. But that's the first arpeggio you could use though. So F major 7 flat 5 arpeggio. And the way I'm playing it is I'm thinking of this shape. So I'm starting on the 7th, root. And I take the same shape and move it to the middle set of strings. And the same shape, move it to the top set of strings. And the reverse. It's a bit awkward fingering wise, but it's easier for the brain kind of to organize the notes like that, if you know what I mean. Because that works really great, obviously, over this chord, because it's the same notes. Could also be a regular F major 7. Or combine them. But that's not what he's playing. He's playing C major 7. Same idea. I'll play these 4 notes, move them to the middle set of strings, top set of strings. Sounds good too. That's a very George Benson thing to do. He does it all the time. So it's like position shift, quick position shifts. Remember that we played this chord, right, where we dropped the G to an F? So let's do that with arpeggio. We get this. So it's like a 2-finger, very Django Reinhardt. And Ulf is playing like. Might seem a little silly to play like that. But sometimes those simplest things are the most effective. So that is actually arpeggiating this chord, right? The C major 7, but instead of G, S, F. There is this Japanese pentatonic scale, I think it's called the Hirayoshi. So it's kind of like an F major 7, flat 5, and 5th arpeggio. So it's a pentatonic scale. So that's kind of combining all those things. So that also could work. You could also just play a sus structure. So E, A, and B. So it's like a sus 4 triad, I guess you could call it. So now that we have all these things we could use, let's make a little vamp. Add some of these chords. So C major 7 arpeggio, F major 7 flat 5 arpeggio, and the Hirayoshi, playing 4th structures. And the F major 7, but with G instead of F instead of G. So something you kind of want to avoid, I think, when you play Phrygian is the cliche sound, where, you know, if you add the G sharp, which you can, that kind of sound like some kind of cliche kind of Arabic music or something. It can be nice, but you want to avoid the kind of cliche sounding thing. So something that Ulf does, he's playing pentatonic, but then he's kind of playing the G sharp almost like it's an A flat instead of the A, which gives you a totally different feel because that G sharp is coming from somewhere else, I guess. It sounds kind of like Michael Brecker. Instead of. Okay, so Dodge the Dodo on my Patreon page. So what we have learned, hopefully, is some ideas for chord voicings over Phrygian and how you can use the same chord voicings as arpeggios for soloing in Phrygian. And try this tune for teaching next time you have a student who is new to jazz but has a rock background. I think you'll find this tune very effective for teaching. So with all that, thank you for your time and attention, and I shall see you next time.